This is Actualize Freedom, straight talk on growing clicks and conversions on Amazon FBA from people doing it every day. Now here's your host, digital marketing acrobat, Danny Kenji Carlson.
What's up, guys? And we have this episode of Seller Skills. Is going to be really interesting if you are interested in making a seven-figure exit with your Amazon FBA business. And that is something that is more than just, a really catchy term, seven-figure exit. Everyone loves that. It is, in my opinion, one of the best ways to really extract cash from an Amazon FBA business. And here we have someone who has done his own seven-figure exit and now is really focused on doing the same for other companies that have built a really good brand but don't necessarily have all the pieces in place that it takes to have that seven-figure exit. So we have a super actionable, concise episode for you here today with Mr. Nate Ginsberg from Sellerplex. How's it going, man?
It's going good. Fun round two of the interview. 1 year later, similar spot for, I don't know if any listeners remember, but
right back here in Bali.
Back at it again, yeah. Well, cool. So yeah, like Danny mentioned, had my own exit in my own FBA business a couple years ago, and through the process, learned a lot. Fortunately, was able to go through it and had a successful outcome. But as I went through it, I learned a lot of things about how to exit easier, faster, and to make more money, through that process. And so that is what has evolved into now helping other businesses to do just that, prepare for and maximize for their seven-figure exits. And we got a nice list of some, try to make this as actionable for everyone listening as possible. And yeah, so we'll just jump into it. So the first thing that you got to get on top of for your, this is if you want to exit, or even if you don't plan on exiting, is really nailing your bookkeeping. So bookkeeping is something that is not the most sexy kind of topic, but it's something that honestly a lot of people are doing wrong. And it's just one of these things that it's a binary thing. It needs to be done. It needs to be done correctly. And it's like a yes, no, sort of situation. It's not nice to have. It's something that you necessarily need if you want to have a successful exit. If you want to, take on financing, for different tax purposes, you need to be doing it correctly. And so this is the first thing that you need to get on top of. And we work with businesses that are, that they want to go to market and they want to, be sold ASAP. And unfortunately for them, it's pretty common that we'll review a business that wants to go to market to exit. We'll review their financials and their the bookkeeping and their P&L, and they've been doing bookkeeping, but it hasn't been done correctly. And so with FBA, with e-commerce, getting cost of goods correctly, how the different Amazon payouts and expenses are classified specific with an FBA business or e-commerce business. It's tricky. And so a lot of people that we work with that just hire a bookkeeper because they know they need to, and they just find someone on Upwork who is a bookkeeper, and they're just, they think that box is checked, when in reality, they're doing it incorrectly. And the unfortunate part for them is then when they want to go sell and someone's reviewing this and it has to be done correctly, then you got to go back and redo the last year, 2 years, potentially more of bookkeeping work, which is stuff that my team and I are happy to help with, but it's not ideal for the seller, because that's going to be more expense and take more time when they want to get their business ready for sale and exit.
Well, it's also a negotiation point that they could bring the initial valuation of your company down, right? And they're okay, well, the books say this, but actually we think that a more accurate view of your books is probably this, so they're going to drop their bid on your company down.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. When in due diligence, incorrect, when you're in due diligence, you want to be looked as buttoned up and on top of your business as possible. That's going to put you at the strongest point. And this is one of the things where professionalism and how it looks actually does make a difference. And if it is looks and is professionally done, that's gonna just kind of make you look more legit and coming into these, this like discussion, negotiation from like a stronger point. And so getting it done. So the first thing, get your books not just done, but done correctly. And the way to do that is really to make sure whoever's doing your books is experienced with e-commerce, ideally experienced with Amazon, because there is some tricky stuff that you need to do correctly with e-commerce, cost of goods, as well as, with Amazon businesses, and just, understanding how they operate, which is stuff that, we've had to learn over the last, year working with other businesses that do go on to successful exits. And so I think the takeaway is get your books, done correctly, make sure they're complete. And so make sure you have whoever's doing that for you is experienced with definitely e-commerce, and ideally specifically Amazon.
Yeah, very, very important. And then what do we have for number 2 on your list here? Once you got your books sorted out correctly.
Yeah, so that's like the foundation of this, the for the sale is having the books and finances done correctly. That's going to also determine the valuation of your business. So pretty important stuff. The next thing, on to increasing the profit and the value of your business, and so what you can exit for, is ruthless P&L review. So your P&L is your profit and loss statement. Hopefully all of the listeners, this is something that they are well aware of and are already doing for their business. If they're not, they should be. So, your monthly profit and loss statement shows your income, shows your expenses, and then shows your profit. Simplified version, but we'll leave it at that for now. And so once you have you're doing your books correctly, that is going to allow you to put together your profit and loss statement. And then what you want to do is ruthless P&L review. So every month, and this is something that I do with my business, for the businesses I'm an investor in, every month necessarily is review your P&L and ruthlessly go through your expenses to see what can you cut, what can you restructure, what can you renegotiate. We all have expenses that creep up, software that we subscribe to that we kind of forgot or started on a free trial that went over to paid. This translates to often, bloated expenses as well as low-hanging fruit to increase your profit, which will then increase the amount you can sell your business for. And so stuff to look for, low-hanging fruit would be, different software that you signed up for that you're not using. We'll get into the more, the higher expense items in a second, but yeah, like different software as a way to what you can cut, stuff you can cut, a good place to start. And keep in mind, anything that you cut on your expenses is super leveraged. So when you go to sell your business, if you're exiting for 7 figures, you're probably selling it around, a 3x profit, 3x annual profit multiple. And so, just for round number sake, let's just say it's a 30x, which would be 2.5 year annual multiple, a 30x monthly profit multiple. So every $1,000 that you can cut on your expenses is going to increase the sale price of your business by $30,000. So
it's worth a lot.
It's worth a lot. Yeah, it's worth your time to comb through and try to keep those expenses as to cut and get rid of the expenses that are unnecessary. So do that. Review your P&L. Cut the expenses that are unnecessary. Gonna give you more profit, give you a higher exit valuation. And so next, and this is kind of like a little higher level finance stuff that I've learned about, and I learned in my businesses, in my previous FBA business, of like how impactful it can be, and is also stuff that it opens up some more doors to cut more significant expenses and improving cash flow, which we'll get to after this. But this is going to be with different financial projections. So the 2 that are most relevant and useful for FBA sellers. The first is going to be getting your cash flow projections. So cash flow for e-commerce FBA businesses, a super common challenge. I remember with my business, it's growing, our sales were doubling like month over month, this was, when we were really taking off a couple years ago. super exciting, also super expensive. You're maxing out your credit cards, trying to cover inventory, trying to find money. And so everything you can do, so managing your cash flow is essential. And so you can get your cash flow projections, which are, again, it's like a next tier of kind of, finance that of these, projections and documents that you can have made for your business to give you a better grip on your cash inflows, outflows, and, give you peace of mind. You can know, as opposed to like worrying, oh, am I going to be able to make that, final payment on inventory next month? You actually can see, what the cash flow situation is going to look like over, this week, next week, this month, next month, etc., so that you can better prepare. And, if you find yourself in a situation, 1 month, 6 weeks, 2 months from now, where it looks like you're not going to have enough money to cover whatever expense, better to find that out now when that's 1 month ahead and you have time to come up with a solution, as opposed to, you're going to make that payment and you don't have enough money. So cash flow projections, super useful. The next is sales projections. And so the sales projection can be a really, really valuable tool. And we'll explain right after, how you can use that to, make more money and improve your cash flow. But so the sales projections are what it sounds like. It's a projection of your sales, from where you are now, moving forward for, the next 12 months or so in the future. And the thing to know about the sales projections is these are one of the things where it really pays to have them done correctly and professionally. And the reason is because one of the biggest opportunities with sales projections is to then take those, and getting into tip number 4 is you can use those to leverage those with your suppliers and vendors to actually lower your cost of goods. And so how you can do that is, if you go to your supplier and instead of saying, oh, we're going to make, we have one PO for 1,000 units today, and, they give you the invoice, you pay for the 1,000 units. If you go to them and you say like, look, we're going to be ordering 20,000 units this year. Right now, we want to make a first PO of this, of the next 12 months of 1,000 units. But this is a part of, our yearly, projections that are going to be 20,000 units with you. And so when you do that, it really strengthens the relationship with your suppliers. You're approaching them more as a partner as opposed to just like a one-off transactional thing. And so when you do that, it builds trust, it builds, credibility, as well as now when you're going and discussing price, instead of getting a price on a 1,000 unit PO, you can say, look, we're going to be ordering 20,000 units this year. Let's get the pricing off of 20,000 unit PO. And back to why it's good to have these done professionally and look nice is because, when you get into these negotiations with the factory, like how legit they look has an impact on how effective they can be,
Right? Yeah, if you just send it to them and they just have to take your word for it, not as convincing as you sending them a really nicely drafted Excel spreadsheet with a PDF or something like that,
charts
with your company letterhead.
And you get the charts and the graphs and the support. I mean, it really, there's a big difference between DIY. I mean, I'm not a big Excel guy, but I can make projections and send you a spreadsheet, and that's going to look one level of professionalism that's not very high, versus working with a team or someone with experience in doing sales projections, and it looks a lot better. And so and when it looks a lot better, again, it looks more legitimate, which is going to look more credible, because that's part of it. You can do your sales projections, but your supplier needs to be believable. And so say, oh, well, right now we're selling 1,000 units a month, but by the end of the year we're going to be selling 100,000 units a month. And I mean, maybe they'll believe that, but like
probably not.
Yeah, and so it really pays to do the projections, so having them done, well and professionally presented is going to make a big difference when you're entering in the negotiations with your, suppliers to try to get the lower cost of goods. And so, lower cost of goods, more profit, more profit per sale, more profit for your business, higher exit valuation. So really impactful. And last but not least, other way that you can leverage projections. So number 5 is, and this is most around improving your cash flow. So like we were talking about before, you get your cash flow projections. You can see what your cash inflows and outflows are going to be looking like. And with FBA businesses, e-commerce businesses, very capital intensive, cash flow is a challenge. And so anything you can do to improve your cash flow is going to allow you to, grow easier, rely less on outside funding. You're not going to need to, take on more expensive debt or, take on investors. And so really impactful can just be improving your payment terms with your suppliers. And so back to those sales projections, another conversation that you can, engage your suppliers with, in addition to lowering the cost of goods, is getting better payment terms. And when you're able to show them, professional looking, projections and graphs and charts around the direction the business is going in, that, that positions you more as a partner with the, with your vendors, and is going to make them more willing to work with you and, give you some, better terms when it comes to payments. And so, standard payment terms, probably 30% down, 70% on completion. And, really, and so with the standard terms, that means you're paying for all the inventory before you're even selling it, or it's 30 down and, 70% before it gets off the boat or before it clears customs or something like that. So you're paying the full balance before you're even selling the product. So like, that's a cash flow nightmare. You have all your expense and before you've even, sold anything. And so anything you can do to stretch out those payments can have a really big impact on your, cash situation in your business. And so if standard terms are 30 down, 70% at completion, or, before it clears customs, one like easy next step to kind of explore that's fairly common would be like 30% down, 40% completion, and then net 30, so 30 days after completion for the remaining balance. And that's it's like not uncommon. Like those payment terms is a good kind of next one level up from the standard 30/70. So 30/70 standard, then you can go 30, 40, and then net 30 on the last chunk. But also would encourage you to be, there's no like set rule in terms of what the payment terms are. It's really, negotiation, discussion, an agreement between the two parties involved, you and your suppliers. And so, I know people, and we've worked with businesses that get, no money down and then, net like 60 on the payment. So they don't have to put any money out of pocket. They get 60 days after the products are finished in order to send the payments. And like that can totally transform your, cash flow for your business. And so, and that's not to say that every supplier is going to be open to payment terms like that.
Well, you need leverage like that. You need to be putting in a lot of orders with them to have that kind of
totally
terms,
right?
Right?
You need to be, you need to have a good relationship, and you need to be a good, to be a good customer, have a good relationship. And yeah, but that like those things, they are possible. And so would encourage any of the listeners here to, explore that and like see how far you can, stretch it. A lot of sellers that we work with, they just don't even know that that's like a thing you can do. And so there's potentially some low-hanging fruit that, if you have a good lasting relationship with your suppliers and you've never approached the topic of getting better payment terms, probably have something better that you can get than what you're currently doing, and yeah, it can have a really big impact on your cash flow.
And it takes a lot of risk off the table, right? It's keeping that cash off of your lines of credits and credit cards that you're constantly trying to max out if you're actually a growing e-commerce company, right? That's a big problem.
Totally. And it's like, you can buy like the two most impactful tactics to, improve your profit and improve your cash flow are, like we talked about, negotiating down cost of goods as your biggest expense, and getting better payment terms on your biggest expenses. And like that can totally be the difference between maxing out credit cards to have to pay for inventory to, as crazy as it may sound, paying yourself a salary as your business is growing, or like paying yourself a fair market salary for what you're doing. Just by a couple of these like key tweaks can have a huge impact on your, cash flow and cash situation, allow you to grow more without, taking on additional debt or investors, and put more money into your pocket, which I think we're all trying to do. So yeah, those are the 5 tips. Just to quick recap. The first one is getting on top of your books, making sure they're done completely and correctly. If you don't do it now, you're going to have to do it later, so you might as well do it now. The next then, to increase your profit, find more money, is ruthless P&L review, cutting expenses. The next is getting some of those higher level finance tools, your cash flow projections as well as your sales projections. And those are more tools or stepping stones to then attack some of these, but the last two, which are the potential biggest wins: negotiating down cost of goods, increase your profit, increase the value of your business, and getting better payment terms to improve your cash flow, put more money into your pocket. So there you go.
Yeah, Nate, that was super action-packed and concise, very actionable. And I know that Sellerplex, you guys help businesses with this, so obviously people can reach out to Nate and Sellerplex there. But if they weren't to work with Sellerplex, like is this, who would they be talking to, right? Would this be an e-commerce accountant? And also, like, what other people would they need to really talk to you about this?
So the key thing is people with relevant experience. And so, of course, this is stuff that Sellerplex help with. Happy to, work with anyone if that's stuff that they need. If you don't work with us, then highly recommend finding someone that has, specifically, ideally, FBA experience. If not FBA, then, definitely e-commerce. Because again, like I see this far too often, that, even people that we're talking about working with, and we have this other accountant or blah, 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 that, there's a big difference between like tax accountants and like understanding e-commerce bookkeeping and accounting. And so, we have clients now that like started working with their, tax accountant. Then it turned out that like they didn't really understand the different kind of complexities around e-commerce supply chain, and how everything needs to be classified, and the FBA fees, and how the whole ecosystem works. So then they come back to us, and of course we're happy to help. So the point is someone with experience, with ideally FBA, definitely e-com. They're going to be able to help you the most, and not do it wrong and then need to come back and find someone with experience to get it all cleaned up.
Awesome, Nate. And if people want to reach out to you or Sellerplex, where's the best place for them to do so?
Yeah, can check out our website, sellerplex.com. Feel free to message me, Nate at sellerplex.com. Also can add me on Instagram, at Nate Ginsberg, like Danny.
All those good handstand Instagram stories going every day. I love it.
Side note, I think the only person that I maybe know personally in the Amazon space that can rock a handstand far better than me is you. So for anyone that also likes, we're all into business, and I love business too, but also love yoga and handstands and traveling. And so if you want to connect on anything, down to connect. At Nate Ginsberg on Instagram, Nate at Sellerplex. Come check us out. Happy to help with anything that we can.
Awesome. And guys, if you're looking for the show notes, any of the links or resources we mentioned in this episode will be at actualizefreedom.com. And if you haven't already, go leave us a review. You can do that very easily at ratethispodcast.com/free. ratethispodcast.com/free, and it'll just open up whatever app you're listening to this podcast on your phone, where you can easily leave us a review, and always appreciate it, guys. Until next time, go out there and kick some ass.
For show notes and resources mentioned in this episode, visit kenjiroi.com.